Welcome back, senoritas and senors, to the Lantern Corps. It is Puss in Boots from Cool Eve today. I am not going to do that the whole time, but still it is Puss in Boots. I love Puss in Boots. I actually liked that first movie they did, too. I mean, obviously, he showed up in Shrek 2. Loved him in Shrek 2. I actually liked that first movie they did. It's nothing amazing, but it's not bad, I think. But Last Wish was the shit. It was my favorite animated film of that year and made it actually in my top 10 films of the year that year. I thought it was fantastic, wonderful. But the question does have to be raised. What is the Lantern Corps of Puss in Boots? And this is a very varied answer, but based on when you would get him in his life. Because theoretically, he can kind of run a lot of this emotional gamut a little bit. Now, some of the ones right out the gate he can't qualify for. He cannot be a Gold Lantern, not happy his entire life, not at all. He also cannot be a Lantern of Compassion simply because that's not his strongest trait, and he still has it, so it doesn't work. He's not a Lantern of Rage. Rage is not something that governed him. Like, he didn't have the rage necessary to be a Red Lantern. There is the idea of fear me if you dare, but if we're being honest, he's not a really good candidate for fear. Like, maybe in his heyday, he could have at least temporarily been, but that's a real temporary fix for fear. We'll go over a couple more in just a little bit, but Death I didn't want to include on the grounds that he's died not 8 times, so technically speaking, he could qualify for death multiple times over. But honestly, in the context of how it seems to work, he dies temporarily and then just comes back to life. It's like the death doesn't take, more or less. So I do not see that working really in this case. But in terms of what we have available, with what's left, for a while he could have been Hope in terms of like placing his faith in like the Wishing Star and all that, but I don't think that works either. But in terms of what he could have been in earlier parts of his life, honestly, in no joke, Avarice worked really well for a younger Puss. For a Puss who would actually even left Shrek and Donkey. Because what was his whole gain, really? He did it for himself. He did it for the love of his legend. He wanted the legend. The legend would never die. You know, he is so egotistical and high on himself that really he'll do anything to ride that ego high longer. And ego and avarice are very tied together. So so he just constantly was seeking validation, never full on it. So honestly, avarice for a earlier in his career or later in his career before the events of Last Wish, Puss really isn't a bad option, I think. That being said, later on in the series anyway, especially when dealing with Kitty, I think shame works. At least, again, initially when with what happened with Kitty, he even said, I am ashamed of what I did. I am ashamed. But also when he realizes he's down to his last life, and when death comes for him, dude, he is in a bad way emotionally. And and Ultraviolet's focus predominantly on negative emotions. Shame's is allegedly to be one of the big ones. So I think shame would have also worked. However, and this is the big however, if we're looking at Puss at the end of his journey at Last Wish until we see him again, where is he by the end of it? And I think there's only 2 real categories. And honestly, the other one's going to be the more boring one answer, but first off, life has to at least be an option. Because one of the things Puss did even before the events of Last Wish was he just loved the thrill of everything. Like, when he was fighting the giant, he was just having the time of his life. And one of the requirements to be a White Lantern is to experience life, to live. When Deadman put the ring on, he was doing a whole bunch of things like riding a roller coaster just to feel just to feel alive. Help to revive a squirrel, help to revive like a dying animal or something like that. Now, the one thing that might keep Puss from being a White Lantern. And then there's a whole idea of having 9 lives, literally just staying alive for longer and longer and longer, like avoiding death. White oddly would work pretty well, provided he learns not to kill anymore, because that is something a White Lantern can't technically do, is kill. I'm sure there are circumstances where it's permitted, but it's still it's something that is kind of a bit of a gray area. They're generally not supposed to do it because it's against what they are. But that leaves us with our last one, and look, it's the boring answer. Anytime I go with it, it's a boring answer, I feel. Like, you want something unique, you want something different. But he is literally a textbook Green Lantern by the end of it. Massive willpower, overcame great shame, guilt, and fear, particularly fear of death, to rise above and basically be the Puss in Boots he's supposed to be. Like, he had the Green Lantern journey right there. And, you know, if Green Lantern Ring had come by the end of that movie, it would have latched on to Puss, guaranteed. And then, ironically, he could have had a fight with, what's the name of the Red Lantern cat? Hold on, I'm going to look that up. Because there's a Red Lantern that has a cat, which is a Lantern cat. What's that cat's name? Dexter, the Red Lantern cat. Dexter. Yeah, Dexter and Puss can duke it out, green to Red Lantern. But yeah, I think, although it's the boring answer, Will is probably the most likely one. That being said, I actually think Life is the second strongest option you could have. And then, but this is by the end of the series. Technically speaking, he could still qualify for a Black Lantern. As I said, he's technically died multiple times. It's just that death is very weird for a cat in the Shrek universe because of, you know, magic. So, I don't know. What do you think on that? Do you think he theoretically should be able to qualify as a Death Lantern? He's also taken life plenty of times, so I don't know if that really works. Or do you think because of the nebulous way they kind of define it for cats until that very last one, it doesn't really work? I mean, you know what? Thinking on it even more now, I think, yeah, it probably shouldn't count because Death never could claim him because of that damn, like I said, I find the very idea of 9 lives absurd. And you never valued any of them. So why don't I just take this last one now? Because he could never claim him. Like, he was never... I think that's what it is. When cats die in the Shrek universe and the 9 live thing kicks in, they're never actually truly dead. They're just kind of like in a coma state, and then they reconstitute, I guess. No matter what the death was. So, yeah, I think that would make the most sense, really. But that's just my opinion. Let me know in the comments below what you think. I would still go, if we're going by the end of Last Wish, he's predominantly a Green Lantern, but he honestly has a really good argument to being a White Lantern. If we're going by him earlier on in his career, he's probably either, or even earlier in the movie, he's an Ultraviolet Lantern is very possible. And he definitely could have qualified, I think, for it as an Avarice, because he was just so full of himself and kind of greedy and self-serving. I think, though, a few minor arguments could be made for something along the lines of fear, at least when he was at the height of his, like, career. And I think at least a mild argument could be made for something like hope for a short time, because he had hope that the Wishing Star could, you know, save him. But I don't see compassion. I don't see happiness. Definitely don't see that. Don't see rage. And unfortunately, I don't see, even though he clearly loves Kitty and they're together by the end of it, what defines, what motivates him isn't love, per se. Not to say that, because there's the scene at the end where it's like, one lifetime spent with you is all I could wish for. Like, clearly, they love each other. They do clearly love each other. I just don't think that works in the context of what you need to define as a Star Sapphire. A character, for example, who you could like, if I were to look at it like a Shrek character really quick, that could qualify for love, honestly, Shrek. Shrek could qualify for love, because, especially once you get past the first movie and then just go on the rest of them, everything he's doing, especially Shrek 2. Shrek 2 is the big one. Everything he's doing, even though he's kind of angry with Fiona out for a little bit, it's like everything he's doing is just because he loves her and he just feels an awkward scenario, but he wants to make her happy. He's willing to turn into a human for her. That's pure love. That's the definition of love. That would be a star sapphire. Puss just, recognizing his love for Kitty, I don't think qualifies near the end. But again, look, maybe you think differently. And if you do, put it down below when you think it will work. In fact, I challenge. I've done this before, and I kind of like when people try to argue this. I challenge anyone out there watching this video to make an argument for all the Lantern Corps. Like, some of the ones are obvious. Like, give me the one you think is most likely, or the ones you think are most likely. But tell me if you can make an argument for any of them. I think I'm going to start doing it. I'm going to challenge you guys in the comments for each character to be like, make an argument for all of them. Can you do it? Some of them, there's arguments for. Death's obviously an argument. I think Hope even has an argument. Others, like compassion, even rage, there could be an argument. But others, like compassion and happiness, because of the qualifications, that's a bit trickier to make those arguments for. So I'm curious to hear what you might be able to bring into the equation. Until then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. I'll see you tomorrow for parts, where are we at now? Part 7 or 8, I think, of the Naruto What If. We're getting to it. Next week's the week of What If. I just realized that too. June is going, but it's only the 10th of June. Only 10th of June. It seems like June started like 2 weeks ago. Like, technically it did, but you know what I mean. June seems to be going by fast. Like, we're not halfway through June yet, but it feels like we are. But I don't know. I digress. What do you think? Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.